Roll call, Larry?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Jane? Here. Bren? Here. Jeannie? Here. And our student representatives, Musab?
Here.
Dylan?
Here.
All right, thank you, everyone. Notice of meeting,
The meeting was properly noticed.
we need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye. Aye. Could you please stand with me and do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we'll start tonight with our Spotlight on Learning. We have Asa.
Mr. Pizzo.
Thank you for having us tonight. All right, so just to kind of go back to the beginning, we have a goal for math and a goal for literacy. So I'm going to kind of review what our goal was going into the school year, and then also give you some progress updates with where we're at mid-year here. And then Katie will come up and talk a little bit about what our plan from a strategies standpoint was going in, and then some adjustments that we're making mid-year now that we have some updates. So with both in math and literacy, we have used multiple measures to identify success with our students. But our goal for math is that 70% of our students will meet math expectations in 2 out of 4 identified measures. So those measures are a mix of achievement-based measures and growth-based measures. So we want all students to be proficient or higher in their overall math proficiency score at the end of the year. We also want students, all of our teachers have, for each grade level, they've worked to identify foundational skills assessments. So those are really the skills that students should already have obtained coming into that grade level. However, we have found at times there are gaps that students have. So the goal then is to use that assessment to identify those gaps and make sure that students are caught up with those foundational skills. Our growth-based measure for math is the STAR assessment. So students take that assessment at the beginning of the year, and then there is an individual growth goal that is identified based on how they assess at the beginning of the year. So the goal there is that from a growth standpoint, that they get to that growth projection by June, the end of the school year. And then that last measure is for our 6th and 7th grade students, the Wisconsin Forward Math exam. But for our 8th grade students, it's that pre-ACT math assessment. So want all of our students to, or 70% of our students to get at least 2 out of those 4 measures. So mid-year, overall, 60% of our students are on track to meet their overall ACMS math goal. And then if you look up there, there's a breakdown per grade level. 6th grade's looking really strong. 8th grade doing okay, 7th grade right in the middle there. So looking at making some modifications to kind of close those gaps so we can get to that 70% by the end of the school year. Switching gears to literacy, the goal reads pretty similar to the math goal. We want 70% of our students to meet expectations in 2 out of 4 identified measures. Same thing, some achievement measures, some growth measures. So for those achievement measures, we have that overall language arts course proficiency. We have all of our science and social studies classes have adopted literacy standards into their classes. So that specifically relates to the literacy standard that they have adopted for either science or social studies. So looking at all students getting to proficient or higher in that. And then similar to ELA, that STAR assessment, but this time for reading, making sure that all of our students reach that individual growth projection. And the last piece is the same as math, but focused on literacy. For our 6th grade students, the Wisconsin Forward, and then for 6th and 7th grade, the Wisconsin Forward, then 8th grade, the pre-ACT. So mid-year for literacy, 71% of our students are on track to meet the goal. If you look at the grade level breakdown, 6th grade is sitting at 72%, 7th grade at 65%, and then 8th grade at 77%. So if you were to go back to and look at our 8th grade, if you looked at our 8th grade state assessment results last year as a middle school, that was our lowest grade level. So mid-year, it is nice to see that our 8th grade has made some progress with these data points. You hope you get to the end of the year and you hope that it relates to how they perform on the test, but really happy to see that 8th grade, 77% of kids are on track to meeting the goal. So I'm going to invite Mrs. Spadoni up here. She's going to talk about our action plan going into the year and then adjustments we're going to make. There you go.
Good evening. So coming into this school year, we had 3 focus areas that we had laid out for our building. So the first was PLCs, Professional Learning Communities, where we utilize the Plan, Do, Study, Act process to look at student data. The second piece was the instructional playbook, which leaned on the gradual release model. Again, if you'll remember back in the fall, we talked about how it's the I do, we do, you do. So that instructional playbook laid out those components, and we've been doing learning about that as a staff throughout the course of this year. And then Pirate Resource is our resource period at the end of the day. It's 30 minutes that all students have. And the goal was to strategically use that time to focus on closing gaps in student achievement and growth. So with that, and Anthony and I are both in these PLC meetings with departments every other week, and we've had the opportunity to look at the data with teachers, ask some probing questions, and do some planning around that data. And as groups of teachers were looking at this mid-year progress update, there were some themes which nicely aligned with the goals and action steps that we set out at the beginning of the year. So teams are really focusing on using that bi-weekly meeting to just look at studying student data. So it's not planning, it's not talking about student behavior, it's purely how do we know our kids are with us? What data do you have to support that? What did you do in the classroom that really accelerated student growth, and how can we grow that practice? So each team has really kind of taken a shift and not focused on planning during those times, but really looking at the student data to talk about how to grow high impact strategies. The second piece then is really intentionally using bell work activities. Those are the activities that kids do right when they enter the classroom to maximize those instructional minutes, right? So during passing period, that's the kids' time to socialize. Every classroom, you walk in and there's something for them to do that either connects to prior learning or maybe prompts them for the learning that they'll do that day. So that, again, the point is to maximize that time in the classroom really intentionally. Some groups are focusing on some test prep material as we head into spring, so thinking about how we're exposing students to different types of questions that they might see on state assessments. Otherwise, they're really focused on the skills that they noticed during the study and the PLC. Ooh, all of our kids really need extra time with this. Man, you know, we didn't hit geometry that hard in 6th grade. We know in 7th grade we need to spiral that in daily so we get a little bit more intentional practice, even though it's not the goal of this specific unit. And then finally, during Pirate Resource, teams of teachers are thinking creatively of how to use that time since it is common. So some grade levels are pulling kids from all 3 houses that might have similar skill gaps, and one person is focusing on this skill, while another teacher is focusing on gathering all 6th graders on that skill. So thinking creatively about how to think outside the box to get every kid what they need. In each 3 of those columns, then, there are specific things that our language arts departments are focusing on, math and social studies science. Thinking about supporting comprehension through conversation for language arts. Our 6th grade team especially, if you remember from the ELA data, they're doing a really, really great job. They're above the goal for this year. And so they're celebrating that and noticing that the kids really like the book clubs and they're able to coach into some of those comprehension strategies a little bit deeper through that. Some close reading for nonfiction texts, and then really thinking about use of exemplars and models to clearly show proficiency for our students in language arts. Math is utilizing some adaptive practice measures through IXL, and then thinking about that spiral again. How can we weave in content? Because sometimes math can be really siloed, so how can we make sure that we're keeping it all in the forefront of kids' minds? That's one strategy that our math department is using. And then social studies and science, really noticing last year when we focused on the claim evidence reasoning for ELA and social studies and science, our test scores showed that correlation of learning strategies had a big impact on student achievement. So bringing that back here for 2nd semester, and then again pulling small groups during Pirate Resource. So what was really nice is that, and this was not planned, but the focus areas that we had in the fall, teams are really leaning on the PLC's instructional playbook and Pirate Resource as ways that they are looking to modify their game plan as we head into 2nd semester to make sure that all students leave with 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. Thank you. Any questions?
What was IXL again?
Good question. So
Yeah.
this year we are piloting the use of a resource that let's say you have 25 students in your class and there's a diagnostic assessment. It's really hard if you have 25 students in your class and each of them needs a little bit different from an instructional standpoint. This will customize some activities for them to be working on that align specifically to what they need. So if Katie,
Software application or-
right, and if Katie needs extra help in geometry and I am really struggling with some algebraic concepts, it'll customize instructional activities for the student and or the teacher to work with the student on. And the biggest thing with that we've tried to push, and I think Mike's dissertation was on this, but like when you're utilizing blended learning strategies, it's critical that you don't just like let the kid work on the computer and have no interaction with them. So what we appreciate about this resource is that there is a tremendous avenue for the teacher and the student to interact in that digital environment, and the teacher can give feedback in real time as the student is working, as opposed to just sending them off and saying like, yeah, do these activities.
Yes, and I have a 200-page book that's barely been cracked, if anybody would like to read more about it.
See, we've had tools before that kind of scaffold the skill sets up and would also drop back to make sure that nothing was lost in previous learning applications. Is the same kind of concept here with this one?
So the STAR assessment does have some tools that identify specific skills that students need remediation or extension in. The challenges with that, their bank of strategies isn't great. We have found with this resource, it's much more customizable for the students, and you can just better target certain skill areas. That's the hard part when you have all these different needs of students. From a teacher standpoint, it's like, well, do I have to do 25 different lesson plans and 25 different activities? So this helps them out a little bit.
Else?
This is really good. I know, I think probably maybe Jane, when you did Learning Walk with us, we looked at that instructional playbook at ASA. I think you were probably along for that one when we did some classroom visits. So I know you've been on quite a few of them, so they might blend together a little bit. But I remember we spent some time on that piece, which was put together, and it really gives coherence to the kinds of approaches that the staff is using. So I really appreciate. And I also really like that you're using multiple measures. Because sometimes students can show that they're performing on one, but the other data doesn't support it, and now you're cross-checking with multiple measures. And I'm guessing you're using 4, right? I'm guessing a lot of those kids that are meeting it on 2 are probably making it on 3 or 4 measures probably as well, depending on what you're using. So that's a great practice.
Could you kind of talk a little bit about the students' receptivity to this and then either parent support, parents' response as well? So.
Receptivity in regards to, I mean, I don't think it's all it is it's instruction, right? So I don't know that they, in some respect, I mean, obviously, like if you need some extra support in a skill and you're working, with a small group of students during Pirate Resource, they would notice that, right? But that's personalized learning, getting students what they need when they need it. With regards to like the instructional playbook and some of the other things that are occurring, that's just natural instruction that happens in the classroom. And unless you really had a trained eye, it would look like classroom instruction. So I don't know that it's really picked up on as much by the students.
With the resource time that's there, that part of it, their engagement with that.
Yeah, and that's not new for us as a building. We've tried to leverage the use of that resource period in the 8 years that I've been here. We're always trying to figure out how to tweak it, make it better. We haven't got there yet, but we'll get there eventually.
And then parents, any comments from parents at all, or anything that they notice?
I don't know that we've had a lot of comments from parents on the Pirate Resource period. I think that probably individuals that are getting additional support, I think parents are appreciative of that. I mean, when you have 650 kids in a building, sometimes it's easy to have miss kids, but I feel like we do a pretty good job with the multiple data points to catch kids before they slip through the cracks and then provide the supports that they need.
Else? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good work. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Great work.
All right, moving on to our student board representative report.
All right, so what we've got for February is starting off with the high school presentation we got from Tom Farley. The brother of the late great Chris Farley gave his time to speak to all grades in the high school at different times, and he taught us all about the dangers of drugs and emphasized the importance of strong relationships and having a lifeboat and how that can really make a difference. He even did some activities with us to demonstrate the sometimes difficult necessity for communication with other people and how pivotal it can be in our lives.
Next, we wanted to highlight the Warriors Wear Red event that happened at the high school basketball game this past week. So this was a second-year event created by a student impact class, Taylor Hoyman, and this event this year was to support Best Buddies and Special Olympics. And with this event, there was both a donation aspect with Miracle Moments and donation, which happened during resources, and a competition to see which resources would donate the most money. But the Miracle Moments were 4 moments during both the pep assembly and the basketball game in which members of the Best Buddies Club would go around with different bins, and people would donate money during those moments, and $7,662 were raised for both Best Buddies and Special Olympics through this. There was also, like last year, a halftime relay race with this event in which students from the Best Buddies Club were placed with students from the high school from the student section, and they had a small relay race at halftime of the basketball game. Next, we wanted to highlight the PLE Wonderporium that happened in January. So the Wonderporium event was a first-year event held for students and parents, having both students and parents coming back in the building during the evening, in which stations were held all throughout the PLE, in the gym, in the art room, in the makerspace, to allow them to wonder or have experiences wondering. So there's different uses of technology like VR headsets, ninja courses, coding, makerspace, and then there was also a service aspect with it as well, with food pantry donations occurring at the end of it.
And we also had a lot going on with athletics and activities. So both boys and girls basketball teams are now ranked #1 in the state of Wisconsin in Division II. And girls playoffs begin February 21st, and boys playoffs will begin at the end of the month on February 28th. On the other hand, we've got wrestling, who recently finished second place in a Woodland Conference tournament. They are now the regional champions and have sectionals tomorrow on Tuesday, and as a team, and on Saturday they have individual sectionals. And then for boys swim, senior Andrew Ekoff became the diving state qualifier and has a state championship on Saturday.
And then with clubs, our Science Olympiad team recently competed in the UW Milwaukee Regional, in which they placed 5th out of about, I believe, 25 or 26 teams, and they had 10 event medalists, and they qualified for the state based on this performance. Our FBLA team recently had their regional conference at Bigfoot High School, in which they had 22 state qualifiers and 24 medalists, and I believe there was 25 or 26 kids on the team, so it was a really high percentage of state qualifying. And then Drama Club had their performance, The Lightning Thief, this past Thursday through Saturday, and they had a very successful performance. And then lastly, we had salutes and recognitions.
So we wanted to salute Tom Farley for volunteering his time to come in and talk to us high schoolers about the dangers of drugs and more. Salute to Jack Babler and Lauren Trinitopoli for getting named to the WSMA State Honors Choir. Taylor Hoyman for the Warriors Wear Red event. Andrew Ekoff for reaching the state qualifier. Nick Janowski for reaching the 1,000 career points milestone in basketball. Milan Momcilovic for becoming the all-time leading rebounder. And anyone else you had?
No.
Right, any questions for them? Nice job.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great report, guys.
Okay, next up we have comments from citizens. Julie, do we have any cards? All right, thank you. And then we have our salutes and recognitions.
I would like to salute the teachers and the cast of the play on this weekend. They were excellent. What I really liked about it is that there were so many younger students in the audience watching that it really kept their attention.
I agree. I'm always amazed at what our theater groups can do.
And only one night with the, smoke alarm.
Right.
Yes. I missed that night.
Anyone else have anything? All right.
I have a couple over here.
Okay, good.
Just real quick, because of course, I want to echo the recognition of the wrestling team for winning regionals. And encourage you all to come out tomorrow night at 6 o'clock in the team sectional if where we wrestle Waukesha North at 6, and if we win that one, we take on the winner of Brookfield East and Waukesha West to see who goes to team state. It would be the first time in like 5 or 6 years.
At home?
It's here. Yeah, we host it at PHS tomorrow night, and then we also host the individual sectional on Saturday. So, if you're not doing anything and you want to catch a good scrap, there's no better place to be. And then I just want to recognize our PTO a little bit, just an acknowledgement that Friday, I believe that we have Hoop Fest returning, and I'm going to be emceeing the event.
Oh,
and
nice.
I don't know, are you refereeing? Okay, so are you doing anything with this one? No, you have.
I'm doing face painting.
You're doing face painting,
Face
Jane?
painting with art club. yes.
Outstanding. Yeah, so it's always a good community event as well, and a lot goes into it. And the staff play as basketball teams, and it's always a really fun event. So I appreciate their efforts in putting that together.
Got something? You look like you've got something. No? The one I wanted to add, then, you reminded me of something, was Jeff Barron's for the weight room. I know that was a big project for him. I mean, I think it's been on his bucket list since he started here. And I don't know if we can acknowledge all of the major donors, but there were a lot. I mean, the PTO, the Booster Club, the football club, the baseball club, the basketball club.
Yeah, you've accepted a number of gifts. I think there's another,
Yeah.
there's 20,000 from youth baseball tonight. So a
Oh,
lot of people between Booster Club,
PTO.
all that coming together to,
Yeah, and like I said, I know that really, Jeff, that was a dream of his to get that.
yeah, and it's pretty cleared out now because it's flooring and everything, and it'll be that last kind of weekend in February where it all gets installed, so it's going to be really nice, really nice.
So, thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes from previous meetings, the correspondence that was included in our packets. We had several gifts, Innovative Construction, Youth Baseball, and then the robotics. They're heavy into their fundraising, so they received from Innovative Construction, Dedicated Computing, and Mike Clausing. And then we have the policies that Jeannie went over at our last meeting. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda items?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Casey, the only addition I'd
Oh.
like to make is that for number 7100.11, Board
Yes.
of Education evaluation process, we came up with the policy, and thank you all for approving it, but we need to come up with procedures. So if anyone has any suggestions or ideas, the policy committee would welcome them.
Okay. All right, moving on to the Business Affairs Committee, Brian?
Yes, we met earlier, as you were there. We started out with the food service report. Things are pretty strong there. The breakfast program is going well in the elementary, but a little weaker in hard to take off in ASA and the high school. With the funding that we got from the federal government during the COVID situation, we ended up with a very large fund balance in the food service report, so large that we were going to get told that we have to spend it. And what's going to get spent on is upgrading our whole kitchen facilities here in the high school. What do we call it? Tilt skillet. Tilt skillet. New class 1 hood that has fire retardants in it, and another class 2 hood. And eventually the floor is going to get replaced as well. So we'll be upgrading that whole facility there and using the excess reserve we have in that fund account. So we also went through check registers and answered a number of questions that the committee had. And as a part of the financial report, we're sitting pretty good for this time of year. Are we, John, correct me if I'm wrong, we got or about to get the second installment of
Will be coming this week.
coming in this week for our tax revenue. So with that, the committee recommends acceptance of this report.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor of approving the Business Affairs Committee report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. Danielle, is this you?
Yes, so we have a team of folks here from the high school for this informational agenda item tonight. So as you recall, last year we had moved forward the alternative education program review. And so while our programs don't require board approval the way that our curriculum content areas do, we do like to provide updates as appropriate as we make progress. And in the case of alternative education, we've made quite a few changes over the course of the last year, some of which you've been able to kind of keep up on as we had a new policy last spring that we needed to bring forward in order to specifically allow for a new program called Foresight within our alternative program to begin, which is a competency-based diploma program. And so we just finished our first semester of that program, and so we thought now would be a nice time to come and give the board an update about where we're all at with alternative education programming and what have been some successes, what are some challenges we still continue to have. And so with us tonight is Stephanie Gilmore and Mike Lazar. They are the two teachers in the program. We have a student, Haley Entriger, here as well to share her experience. And then Dave Zindler and Melinda Larson, Dave is here tonight. They've been working very closely as well with this team of teachers to be able to help make this become a reality. And Brian and Paul are also here to answer any questions that you may have. So I'm going to turn it over to my team, who's prepared to share with you some things that we've learned along the way.
Hello, Stephanie.
Hello. I have a bit of a cold, so I'm going to try and get through this. But I'm Stephanie Gilmore, and I appreciate you having us here tonight to talk about the alternative education program. The traditional pathway of high school is the best route for some students, but not for all students. So for a variety of reasons, several students find themselves struggling to function successfully in traditional high school model. So alternative programming is necessary. The purpose of our alternative program is to provide students who are at risk of not graduating an option outside the constraints of a traditional system. We offer different pathways to earn credit, so they can demonstrate proficiency in specific competencies and to best prepare them for the academic, career, and life transitions they'll be making. We work proactively to keep students engaged with learning and focused on their future. And then we create an environment that supports students' physical, social, and emotional well-being, and a culture where students feel connected to their peers, adults in the building, and the community. The alternative education program supports a specific population of students. So we support students who need an online class or two, maybe because of scheduling conflicts. We also have students who need to credit recover maybe 1 or 2 classes. We have students who feel disconnected, they're not engaged in traditional high school. Students who are severely credit deficient and they're at risk of not graduating with their peers. And then simply students who would just benefit from a more authentic and project-based learning experience. The alternative education program has several offerings that help students to be successful. So part of our program, we offer online courses, hyper-personalized programming, smaller class sizes, a comfortable environment and supportive learning community, a flexible schedule and credit offerings, Foresight competency-based program, including authentic and project-based learning, a competency-based diploma option, as well as a state of Wisconsin high school diploma that's equal to 23.5 credits compared to the standard diploma, which is 28.5. Over the past 6 years, several improvements have been made to the alternative education program. We added a guided study as a means to help support students who were struggling. That was in an attempt to prevent them from failing classes and becoming credit deficient. We switched to a better online learning platform. We took some time to realign our online courses to better match our traditional courses. We created custom online courses based on students' needs and their post-secondary plans. Collaborated with WCTC to coordinate opportunities for students to take WCTC skill building courses for high school credit. We sourced pen and paper math options to better meet students' post-secondary needs, such as math for HVAC, math for the trades, math for auto technicians. We created a contract for students moving to the alternative education diploma, and we piloted a project-based learning experience with a couple of students kind of right before COVID hit. We were trying to get that off the ground. Even though several improvements had been made, because the number and the needs of students in the alternative ed program was rising, it became time to make even bigger changes. As I mentioned, the number of students was on the rise, but also the number of courses that students in the program needed to credit recover was also on the rise. So they were online a lot more for their classes. The process for recommending and enrolling students wasn't really consistent, and it wasn't efficient. And with the higher numbers, we felt a need to get a better handle on that. Students were not engaged, and they were not being best prepared for their post-secondary transition because we found them, stuck online so much to make up their credit deficiencies. So, as I mentioned, the numbers, as you can see here, the first 2 years, I guess, I was involved with the program, that was 2016 to 2018. We had about 15 and 19 students who were enrolled in alternative education in some capacity. We fast forward up to our past 2 years, last year and this current year, and our numbers were 37 and 34 students. Recently, we were in a meeting, and I was talking to Danielle about how I think those days of having 15 or 19 students in the program are long gone, and I don't think they'll ever return. We know that there's just a rising need for students needing alternative means of being educated. So we recognize the improvements we made were good, but we really needed some more robust changes to meet the growing number and needs of our students. So we decided on these 4 areas of emphasis to really target on. And I will go over the first 3 in more detail in the following slides. One is better processes for how we identify and enroll students in the program. 2, creating program pathways with some parameters so that we create consistency with placing students in a pathway that best meets their needs. 3, the development of a new pathway called Foresight that would offer authentic and project-based learning experiences and a competency-based diploma and transcript. So a way to kind of get students off of all that online coursework that they were having to do and get them more involved in some more enriching learning experiences and better post-secondary preparation. And then also we added a second teacher, and that's Mike Lassard, who's behind me, in January of last year. So that was a well-needed addition, not only to help with the numbers, but to gain his insights and experience as he has some previous alt-ed experience that he brings to the table. So for the processes, because of the growing number and all the diverse needs, it was necessary to make improvements to the program as far as like policies and our enrollment procedures. So we first took a look at placement, and we came up with a system where we created a watch list so like our student services team could take a look at and keep an eye on students who they think may be headed down the path of alternative education and look at things such as credits and grades, attendance, mental health needs, special ed, requirements, behavior, post-secondary plans. And then we came up with a schedule where we consistently be taking a look at students on the list and watching them to see if maybe they would move off the list and things had improved, or maybe things got worse and they needed to enroll in the alt-ed program. And then we've tried to structure certain enrollment periods so we just don't have kids coming in and out of the program all year long. Next is the intake process. Once we decide that they were going to be enrolled, we came up with a better intake process where we meet with the student, their guardians, a guidance counselor, a case manager, the alt-ed teachers, and we get together and they complete an application. You'll get to know each other better, get to know more about the student and their needs and how we can meet them in the program, and then a program contract so that the student's committing to the expectations of the program. We found the need to create pathways. We had to put some parameters in place so that we could have consistency for those people who are recommending students for the program and help them better understand what's the best route for the student to go through the alt-ed program. So this is an outline of kind of a scope of the different pathways. On the far left, you'll see, you might just have some students who need to take a couple online classes because of scheduling conflicts, so it's an alternative way for them to get their credits. They're earning the Pewaukee High School Standard Diploma. In the middle, you see credit recovery, so we have two pathways. Pathway 1 is really where we kind of keep an eye on their credits and say, no more up to 4 credits max, and then we'll still award you a Pewaukee High School Standard Diploma because we are not an online school, so we're not, going to push you to take a bunch of online credits, and we'll still award you the Standard Diploma. Pathway 2 is that student who does need to do more, maybe online and a hybrid of traditional courses and online courses, but more than the Pathway 1, and we move them to the State of Wisconsin High School Diploma. That's the 23.5 credit diploma that I mentioned earlier. And then our newest pathway option is the Foresight program, and that's really for students who we just feel, some authentic and project-based learning experiences and a competency-based transcript and diploma. It's a half-day program that will fit these students' needs better and a way to engage them and prepare them for what their post-secondary plans are. So a little more detail into Foresight. I kind of alluded to why this started because we had students who were online so much, taking online courses. They didn't have opportunities to collaborate with students, and it just didn't really feel like we were preparing them for their post-secondary needs. So the development of Foresight was really based on research and understanding of the biggest needs of the students in our population. And we landed on the 4 pillars that you see up there: wellness, academics, transition, and employability. So those pillars are the focus of the Foresight curriculum, and they neatly align with the graduate profile. So as we build out the learning plan, we could very easily match the requirements of the Foresight program to the items in the graduate profile. It also provides a schedule that allows students to be in class at the same time. Formally, with the Pathway 2, we had students scheduled all throughout the day in different periods. Foresight, it's 9:45 to 12:45. They're with us, and we can actually have classes with the students. It's competency versus credit-based, and it's really authentic and customized to student interest and their post-secondary needs. There's been a lot of highlights in Foresight this year. There's been a few challenges. We have some next steps, and we have a vision for the future, which I'll get to in a little bit. But I thought rather than me talk about the highlights, I have one of our students here, Haley Entringer. Haley is a senior in the program, a semester graduate, and she originally, I believe, joined the program second semester of her sophomore year as a Pathway 2 student. And I would like to invite her up to kind of speak to why she needed the alt-ed program and her experience in Foresight so far this year.
Hello everyone, my name is Haley Entringer. As she said, I'm a student in the Foresight program. Well, I graduated, but same difference. Foresight has honestly been like a turning point in my life. it has had a huge impact on me and on my peers too. I definitely can vouch for them. Like all of us needed it, and just being in there every day, being in that environment, like, I don't know, it's just life changing. Like having a place that like you can go to, and like you'll be safe there, and everyone there cares about you. And obviously, like we get our diplomas out of it, so like it's giving us faith in our future as well. Knowing that like we'll have the same opportunities as anyone else who graduated from here. When I was a freshman, I had a lot of struggles in school. I have like a bit of a villain origin story with my life. I've had it pretty rough, and because of that, I had a lot of mental health needs. And the traditional like classes and like the structure of traditional school wasn't really meeting those needs. I have a lot of difficulty with like remembering things, and a lot of like traditional schooling is like, here's the information, remember it, like regurgitate it on the test. This is what's like we're basing your intelligence off of. And like I didn't do very well in that environment because like, I wouldn't remember it. And it just wasn't like, I don't know, as like hands-on as I needed it to be. Like, I don't know, I didn't really feel like too involved in it. Like it was just, here's the PowerPoint presentation, here's the work. And like, I don't know, I didn't like how my intelligence was defined by like a number, on a piece of paper. And it's very different in Foresight, where instead of being like, well, you did this and this and this, so like here's an A or a B or a C, it's like you did this, like this earns you a credit, like this is going towards your future. Like everything that we did, like I felt like it had an impact on like the program and our futures as well. And I don't know, it just gave me a lot of confidence knowing like anything that I did that like was seen as proficient was like a step in the right direction, as opposed to like, do I really need to know this? Or like, is this really necessary for like passing the class? Stuff like that. Sorry, it's very nerve-wracking being up here in front of all you guys.
You're doing a great job.
Haley, I had the opportunity, Haley, to see the project that you did and work with you a little bit this last semester. Can you share with the board the project that you chose to do and what the final kind of result of that was and who you spoke with at the end?
Okay, so my first project was about sexual assault. It was like, what factors can lead to it happening, like what like sort of the statistics are for it happening to someone, and then how that affects them and how they can like overcome it. And I have like, that's happened to me, so it was very like personal to me. I was very like driven to do it. I wanted to spread awareness about it and share my story and like give people hope, I guess, that like, even though like something bad can happen to you, like that doesn't have to be the end. Like there's like so many places you can still go in life, and like there's so many options for like overcoming it and just being your best self despite it. So I made that entire presentation like with just a lot of information about all that, and I also made an art piece, and that was very personal to me. I got the materials from Miss Olson, the art teacher. She's been very supportive of like everything that I've done in this program, so thank you to her. But yeah, I made a sculpture and I presented that along with the presentation, just to show like, this is one of the ways that I've coped with what happened to me. Like art has been my lifeline, and I actually got accepted into college, Wittenberg University in Ohio, and I want to be an art therapist so that I can help people who've been through the same things that I have, and making art like with my projects. That'll be on my transcript, so that'll be like, I don't know, something that the colleges will see, and it can help me like move forward. It's also worth mentioning that in the Foresight program, we have learned a lot of real life skills. Traditional school never would have taught me what taxes are, why I need to pay them. Like the IRS would have been on me if I wasn't in this program. And we learned about like budgeting, like the importance of it, how to do it. Like we were taught to like have goals, like financial goals, just goals in general. We went over like SMART goals, like, I want to go to college, so, these wonderful people have helped me to like figure out how I'm going to do that, like what steps I need to take, both like physically, like, where I need to go and what I need to do, but also financially, so that I can afford to do all of that. And we've done a lot of like wellness stuff, and that's been like the biggest thing for me. Like we are very in tune with like, you know, what our beliefs are, like what our values are, like how we're doing. Just I don't know, all that important stuff that like, you know, people should be doing, and I feel like it's not like touched on enough like anywhere else. We just learn that every day and apply it every day. We read the book The Four Agreements. Very good book. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. And it goes over like, you know, this is the way the world is. This is how we're like taught to like behave. Like just giving us awareness, like when we make assumptions, like instead of being like, oh, you know, Stacy didn't like look at me in the hallway, she must hate me. Instead, like being like, well, you know, there's a logical explanation for this. Like I can talk to her, I can figure it out. Like rather than just, you know, like assuming something and letting your mind run wild. Like always doing your best and letting your best be good enough. Like I wake up every day, I go to work, I get home, and I like, I don't know, praise myself, I guess. And like I'm not really hard on myself because I know like I did what I could. And like even if my best looks different today than it did yesterday, it was still my best and it still deserves like validation. Just stuff like that. I don't know. We've gone over like a lot of stuff in this program and all of it has really stuck with me. Also, my peers in the program, they're like my best friends. I love them all dearly. Like we all were very supportive of each other. Like every day we could go in there, we would talk about like, you know, so-and-so said this to me today, like my mom did this, you know, and like we would all, it was just a safe space where we all could feel comfortable like talking about our personal lives and giving and receiving support from each other. Yeah, there's so much, you know, if it was up to me, I could stand here literally all day and talk about this. But
Where can we get better? What adjustments do we need to make to make it even better in our Foresight program?
Definitely keep these teachers. Give them a raise, you know, a promotion maybe. Like they've earned it. They've done so much. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Do you have questions? Would you take some questions?
Yeah, any questions you guys have, I would be happy to answer them.
Haley, first of all, I want to congratulate you on graduating early. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. When you went into this program in your sophomore year, were you nervous? It was something new? It was something unknown? And if you were, how long did it take before you felt comfortable?
Like going into like the alt ed program
Yep.
as a whole, I was pretty hopeful about it. When I first went into it, I was in a very dark place in my life. I was kind of in the mindset like nothing matters. Like I'm not gonna make it. Like I'm not gonna live past school anyway. Like what's the point? Like why should I care? And the alt ed program was kind of like a light shining through all of that because it was like I had failed a lot of classes, especially with COVID and everything. Like I hadn't been doing the stuff I needed to do, and like it was a concern like whether or not I would be able to graduate. Like everything was just kind of up in the air, and like I don't know, coming into the alt ed program kind of gave me hope that like, you know, no matter what, like I'll get through this, and like, you know, there's other ways to like get through. So yeah, I don't know. I wasn't necessarily, I guess like the thing I was most nervous about was just like if I was gonna get my stuff done on time, you know, if I was gonna be stable enough to like continue working through it. But just the environment as a whole, like it helped a lot.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question about the program in general. You graduated early, right?
Mm-hmm.
For those students that aren't collecting enough credit, you refer to her as a senior, but is there, if they don't have enough credits by their fourth year, can they keep on going in this program until they earn enough credits? Do they age out at 21 or something like that?
Well, right now, the program, we have juniors and seniors in the program, and that's based off of their credit count, that they're considered juniors or seniors. So like Haley, everybody comes in, it's all different, right, with how the amount of credits and experience they have accumulated. So like her transcript will be her traditional Pewaukee transcript, and then in addition to that, it'll be the mastery transcript that we use in Foresight that will be added to that. So really it's kind of on a case-by-case basis with each student of building out their plan, what they come into the program, you know, having completed, and what they will get, you know, out of the program if they need like, you know, 2 years, a semester, a year and a half, or whatever.
Yeah,
What if they need 5 or 6 years of high school?
So one of the things we changed is we allow the continuation during the summer of programming that they're in our Alta Ed program, so that they don't have to stop and take 3 months off, in the summer, because that slows things down as well. So that has been one way. In full transparency, the most difficult challenges we have are students who come to us late in their high school experience and are incredibly credit deficient, trying to find a pathway for them to be successful. So, without an IEP associated with them, it's hard for us to extend too far beyond, the traditional 4 years. But so, in that 4th year, we do try to make sure that they understand all their various pathways, both with us and if it were to ever need to be beyond us as well. And again, usually the only ones that need to go beyond us are ones who come to us really late as juniors in their 3rd year and incredibly credit deficient. So those are harder options to solve.
How many
Thank you.
students are in the Foresight arm of this, of Alta Ed?
This semester, we currently have 4 students.
4? Okay, thank you.
And that was intentional this year. Stephanie can vouch for that I
Oh,
refused
yeah.
to let more in, because I wanted to make sure the program got its legs underneath it
gotcha.
and got experience, and the students who were in the program were able to find success as we navigated our way through a competency-based program. So we intentionally kept it small this year.
Well, and we had 6 to start, but
Yeah.
we've had
Couple
some
leave.
choices we made. that-
Okay, so when
yeah.
Haley started, it wasn't Foresight, right?
Right,
But
she
you
was just doing the
finished-
online classes at
You
first.
finished with Foresight.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying that. I know you got something.
Yeah, okay, this is one of those where it's like, it kind of brings me to tears, Haley, in terms of your story. So thank you so much for coming tonight, because as school board members, we work on creating policies and procedures and different things to create a learning environment and a teaching environment to fulfill our mission, which is opening the door to each child's future. And tonight, you really brought that home for me personally in how you described your experience with the program that you started as a sophomore, and the fact that the teachers that you've had over the course of your career, and to graduate early, hopefully you really, really do see that opening the door to each child's future clearly fits you. And, in many, many ways, that graduate profile, things that you've learned about taking care of yourself and those kinds of things. So, yes, indeed, I'm a little bit emotional about this because it really hit home. You really have done a very, very good job in describing your learning experience here at the Pewaukee School District. So congratulations to you on graduating, and good luck to you at your college program in Ohio. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for saying all that. I'm just honored to be able to stand here and vouch for this program. I know that it means a lot to Miss Gilmore, Mr. Lassard, everybody involved. Like, it's very personal to them. They care a lot about it and want it to succeed. Like, Miss Gilmore has so many, dreams and goals for where this can go in the future. And I'm just so happy that I can be a part of, pushing that forward. I really hope that it goes places. Yeah, I don't know.
But you clearly described it, and you put it in your terms and in your words, that you knew and understood that some of the traditional learning things and teaching things that we do just don't work. And it's great and wonderful. That's why we have programs like this to help folks or students that need to have a different route to get to that end point in terms of what's there. But thank you again for coming. I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you again.
Haley, do I get to see you on this? Are you going to walk the stage in June?
Yes.
Good, fantastic.
I'm planning to stay here in Pewaukee. I'm currently working full-time, and I'm going to stay for graduation. I'm going to walk, and then after that, I'm out of here.
Head to Ohio.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming too.
Congratulations, great job.
She's been very integral, in giving student voice to, when we're creating rubrics and, tearing through those and making them more student-friendly. She's our guinea pig for this new transcript and how we're providing evidence to the transcript. So she's been very patient with us and helping us, be kind of the first one through this process. So
Stephanie, do you maybe just want to kind of skip to that next step slides
Yeah,
that you
sorry.
have, just to kind of wrap up, like, and talk a little bit about, some of the overall things that we're experiencing and have been talking about now that we've learned so much.
Yeah, so next steps, we have to build out the mastery transcript. There's a lot of work to be done on the transcript yet, I'll just say that. The curriculum development, so the scope and sequence and the assessments for the Foresight curriculum. So Mike and I continue to work on that. And the recognition, I guess kind of the piece about how do we get when we're ready to, get the word out more about the Alt-Ed program as a PHS program option and be more reactive instead of placing kids, it can be more option for them. And like as Haley alluded to, I have some big visions, but I just feel very passionate about alternative education and the need for it. I could see in the future like a coordinator that oversees alternative ed programming and curriculum development in the middle and high school and drives program improvements, because I don't think Alt-Ed is just a high school need. I think we're finding that I'll be in meetings and they'll say, well, we have this 8th grader or we have this 7th grader. So I think that can be identified sooner. Maybe it's listed in a course catalog like Insight, and it can be an option for students to take instead of being placed into more sections of it, expanding it 9th through 12th grade, working on our scheduling for sections with the other Alt-Ed programs, and then guided study, which is a piece of this, to become credit bearing. So some of the visions for the future. So, well, these are more Alt-Ed students. I just have to point out, we do have 2 Alt-Ed students, the boys in the upper right-hand corner. It's our first time where we've had 2 students in our program. One's in dual enrollment at WCTC for construction, and the other one's in the Accelerate program for carpentry. So that's a pretty big step for us to have those guys getting a jump start on their college careers. As they're both seniors, but it's hard for them. They got a lot of outside factors, but I'm really proud of them, and that's been pretty cool. And graduation is always cool. So anyhow.
I just want to thank Stephanie and Mike especially for all of the work that they do day in, day out. They're true advocates for students, and they get to know their students on such a awesome level, to really know what it is that every student needs in order to be successful here, and also just a thank you to Dave and Melinda and Paul and Brian. We've been meeting, I don't know, about monthly for the last 2 years, trying to figure out how all of these details come together. And so, 18 months ago, we really were trying to figure this out and felt really lost. And now to see and hear from students like Haley, I just think it's really great to see where this program is headed towards. And like you, Larry, I was emotional when I got to sit with Haley for a couple of hours and hear about her story and hear about her project. And I came back to Mike and I said, especially when you get to our level, right, as the board or senior leaders, you don't always have the chance to see how your work immediately can impact the learning of students, right? You see it much more holistically, but you don't know, did this thing I really invest my time into actually make a difference? And that day I came back and said to Mike, I feel like today I made a difference, and that was awesome. So thank you to you guys. So any questions at all still for any of our folks?
Thank you again for coming.
Yes, thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you.
Remember her name.
Yeah, right.
Thanks for being here tonight.
All right. We will move on to John and the second Friday count.
Can't beat that one.
I don't think you're gonna make Larry cry.
You're not
Top that.
Thank you again. Thank you, everyone.
So in your packet tonight, we give you a summary. Typically at the first board meeting in February, we'll take a look at the second Friday count. There's 2 count dates that we have during the year that impact school finance for the district. The first and the most significant is the 3rd Friday in September, and that's really what sets our revenue limit for the year. In January, we do a second count the second Friday in January, which again counts the pupils in the same manner. But this count is averaged with the third Friday and the summer school, and it's used in calculating equalization aid for the next school year. So this report has been submitted. It's submitted to the Department of Public Instruction within the timelines. On our second Friday in January, we had some change from third Friday in our student population. So overall, there's 3 counts that you should be aware of. The first one is a head count. So that's just the physical, the bodies, the heads that are in the district. And our head count from September to January went down by 6 students. So bodies in the building went down by 6 students. Within that head count, then we focus then in on residents and non-residents. Our resident count at that same time frame stayed the same from one count date to the next. We had 7 residents who enrolled in virtual options, in other options outside of the district. Most cases, those are virtual options where the students move to. And then the third count is the FTE, the full-time equivalency of the students that are here. So every student does not count as a 1.0. 4-year-old kindergarten students count as a 0.6 when it comes to the formula for determining state aid. So our overall FTE in the district went up by 1 student. Our resident FTE in the district went up by 1. So very stable from the third Friday in September through January. Usually in the past, that's been an indicator. The last 4 or 5 years, it's been less of an indicator of where we're headed coming for the fall with our enrollment. So, any questions?
Thank you, John. Next, we have to update and approve our COVID-19 plan.
Yeah, so, COVID-19, I don't think any of us are disappointed that we talk about this a lot less than we used to. So as I think you'll recall, we're required for the federal grant funding through September of, the funding runs through September of 2024, but in doing some digging, because Jane had asked a few good questions just in terms about that 6-month requirement. And the statement on the DPI page is that we have to update this plan every 6 months through September of 2023. So we'll need to do this one more time. This is a requirement to receive the federal funds that we have, so that's why it's before you. You last updated this in August, or reviewed this and approved the updated plan at that time. The process for this, we are close to operating really largely like we do for other viruses, symptom monitoring, those kinds of things. Really the differences are the recommendations and the expectations that someone who's actually diagnosed with COVID, that it's a 5-day window that they're supposed to stay home from the onset of symptoms, so that's a little bit different. We do have testing on site that's available, whether it's a student or staff member can go into any health room and get tested here, or they can get a test kit that they can take home if they would like. Those are available. So we have those procedures and those kinds of things. So Colin and I just took another look at the plan, cleaned it up a little bit, and revised some things that really spoke to where we were at the start of the year. We had referenced the vaccine clinic that we did in the fall and the start of the year plan. It's something we would consider if we get demand for it. At this time, things are so readily available. I don't know that makes that's necessary for us to do that here. I do envision that it's probably an option for staff, like flu shots are annually, as part of probably something each fall. But at any rate, the operational plan is not substantively different, otherwise from what was approved in August. So I'd be happy to take any questions you have. Otherwise, I would seek your approval of the COVID-19 operational plan for the next 6 months.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I'd just like to discuss and get board feedback about a couple things. Just The first one is the PSD approach. As Mike said, we're pretty much back to normal following illness guidelines. So I'd still like to continue to tweak this towards normal. And I was wondering if anyone had any input or would like to discuss the masking page and whether we could eliminate the first bullet in the second column. Because
What page is that on, Jane?
it's on page 4, so top of page 4, because it is stating it in the first column, and again, I just want us to get back to normal, and we're kind of already doing that. So whether we could, if we need that first bullet in the second column.
Is that the one, Jane, where it talks about the CDC recommends masks to be worn?
Yes, that's the one.
What is the change you're recommending?
I'm just saying, I think we should just eliminate that bullet because the second bullet says, which is more of our approach right now, students, staff, and visitors may voluntarily choose to wear masks per their personal preference. I don't think that we need the first bullet with the CDC since it states that in the column, in the left-hand column.
Well, that section also goes into detail in a prescriptive way about how many days out and how many days of mask wearing, right? You're returning after day 5, prior to day 10, so.
Yeah, but
there's more
that's just saying,
details there,
it
so.
basically says that in the first column.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Would
that's
it
a
describe-
CDC policy versus ours. I mean, we're saying that students and staff, visitors choose. So I guess I'd like to eliminate that bullet.
Well, the reason it was included originally was to identify where these recommendations came from, and that's why the reference there. We talked about, did we dream it up? No, that was the guidance from the CDC, and that's why it's listed there.
Yeah,
that
but
right,
we have
Mike?
I know, we already have 2 columns. We have a CDC column, and then we have a PSD approach.
Yeah, so the column on the left, everything in the column on the left is to give a comparison to current public health guidance that's published by the CDC. The right clarifies our approach. In essence, the statement on the right just restates the recommendation that is stated on the left from the CDC, that it is recommended by the CDC that if you are returning prior to day 10, that you should wear a mask. And the way that we've done in the district is we haven't had any requirements for that. It really is just referring people to the recommendation from the CDC. So I can see what your point is, it redundant because it's also stated in the left. But Brian's point is accurate, that we've translated what the guidance has been, and we've tried to clarify in that right-hand column to say here's what the practice is, but they really do say the same thing in this case.
I would support removing it. I could also see beefing up the second sentence to discuss if there is a return after day 5, prior to day 10. So it would be more concise. It wouldn't, I think Jane has a valid point that we're referring to a CDC recommendation in our column, where I think we could just be stating our position.
Well, it does state on the return when on page 3, top of 3. So
Top
it
of
states
3?
that has that same statement with the CDC mask and,
Under the return when?
Yep.
yeah, return when. So it has it there. Like I said, I'd like to continue to make steps towards normalcy and simplify, simplify things for everyone. So that's why, and I guess like I said, at the top of page 4, it says that we have been, pretty much according to Mike, we've been allowing, everyone has been allowed to mask according to their preference. And so I think that's more accurate.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't police that.
Right.
All we've done is state that's the recommendation. So we don't spend any time policing whether people are or aren't. We've just published what the recommendation was.
Is there any more discussion on this? Do you have
Is
anything?
that a motion?
Okay, so I'll make so I'd like to make a motion to amend, and I would like to remove the first bullet in page 4 on the right column. And it will just be removing the statement, the CDC recommends masks to be worn by recently infected individuals returning after day 5 and prior to day 10 following the start of symptoms. See isolation and quarantine guidance above.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion to remove that bullet point from the top of page 4. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, the ayes have it. Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else on this document that we'd like to discuss? The amended, we do.
Yeah, that you would, approval of the updated plan would be. or would
As
be-
amended. Do I have a motion to approve it as amended?
I move to approve it. Second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the COVID-19 plan for the 2022-23 school year as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, moving on to personnel issues.
We have a retirement to approve, and I think that's it in this report. Pete Caldwell, tech ed teacher who's been with us for, I believe it's 30 years, will be retiring this year. So we certainly appreciate Pete's long service to our students in this district. I was just in his classroom the other day on a learning walk, so learned a few things about how you make a joint with 2 boards together. I learned quite a bit in the 10 minutes I was in there. So I'd be happy to take any questions if you have them, but otherwise I would seek your approval of Pete's retirement with thanks for his long service.
Move to approve with our thanks.
Second?
All in favor of approving Peter Caldwell's retirement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, moving on to board goals and operations. We will discuss first our upcoming activities. So hopefully you were able to reply to Julie about if anybody is available for the reality store on March 7th. And then we will need to replace Musab. So we need to interview candidates, and we had some dates there.
I am unable to make any of those dates, sorry.
For the interview
Interview.
or
the
reality store?
star.
All right. Okay. And then the WASB has 2 things coming up. The school law conference is on February 23rd, and the day at the Capitol is on March 22nd. So Julie would need to know if anybody wants to attend those. So mark your calendars. And then finally, we have the honors banquet. Oh, that's been set? Because in our packet, it wasn't set, right? Okay, so that's been set for Wednesday, April 26th at Silver Spring. So please let Julie know if you can attend that. And then we have our next board meeting, starting with the policy committee on February 27th, followed by the board meeting. And then on Monday, March 6th, we will have our learning session for the RTI. That's the RTI one. Are there any questions on our upcoming activities? Okay, let's move on to
Did we have there was an item there for delegate report?
This next item.
That's the next item.
Oh, gosh, mine hasn't come, I thought I looked at this and saw they were.
So,
Sorry
yep,
about that.
so next, the convention and delegate report. Brian, I'm gonna ask you
I
to go first.
apologize for jumping on that, Stacy.
No problem.
Well, I think I mentioned that you all owe me a drink.
I know.
Yeah.
Only one?
That was a long one.
That
was a long one.
At least
Or
6
one from each of us.
6 of us, yeah, 6 drinks.
Okay.
So I did provide some of my comments back to the WASB for how the thing was run. The first year I did this, it was COVID, so it didn't really operate like a usual delegate assembly. This year, it was more like the regular delegate assembly, but to the man on the WASB staff, they didn't see one that ever ran this long. some of the problems, I think, that there was a lot of newbies there that didn't understand that the information that was in the resolutions were taken out of larger resolutions. And so they wanted to change maybe a paragraph instead of printing the 8 or 10 paragraphs of the resolution. People would start saying, well, we should include this, include that. And we say, well, it is included. This is just the excerpt that we're trying to change. And that happened over and over again. And they didn't understand that those resolutions were changing only parts of a different, longer resolution. So that came up time and time again. And then there was a lot of folks that were trying to wordsmith things to death, even to the point where they were adding in things that didn't even relate to the theme of the resolution. So there was gracefully some people that quickly called the question so we could keep the thing moving. But it did go from about 20 after 1 till about 5:30, I think it was. And people started losing consciousness and left the building. And it ended up that we didn't get through them all because eventually we didn't have a quorum. So we had like 196 districts there, and when they hit, I think it was 224, that was less than a quorum, and we had to call it a day at that point. But they did make it through quite a few of these, and hopefully the people that were there this year will be there next year, so they'll have some experience on how to go through this. But they need to, I think, provide a little bit better instruction to the newbies because it really drug out the whole process. So.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, and then I was hoping if anybody had any comments to share about breakout sessions that they went to that might benefit the rest of us.
Well, when I'm on a roll, I thought the theme of this whole thing had to do with facilities, and there were so many contractors and architects and construction managers there. It seemed like the entire theme of this convention had to do with a lot with facilities. It was just loaded with that kind of stuff.
Ron?
Well, first of all, I just want to give kudos to our teams that presented. I went to all 5 presentations, and I thought they were excellent. They were professional. Everyone was well-spoken, very engaging, and everyone's presentations had a great group of people there that were engaged, asking questions, really truly interested in the information that was being given. So I just want to say kudos to everyone that gave presentations. I just want to call out Colin Jacobs. He gave this really great presentation on the value of character studies. Excellent. The room was packed, and people were really impacted by what Colin had to share about what we're doing right here in our district to go beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic and really teach our kids character. So it was a proud moment for me when Colin was speaking. The breakout session that I enjoyed the most was a good old Southern gal from Texas who spoke on, it was called Developing Effective Questioning Techniques for Board Members. And from that, she talked about learning to perceive your questions when you're at a board meeting as a member. Are you questioning to learn? Are you questioning to judge? Like, for instance, if you're judging, you're going at it closed-minded, critical, problem-focused, maybe dismissive. But if you're going at it that you want to learn, you actually want to ask questions to learn, to better understand why we want to make this curriculum change or why we want to spend this money. You go at it very open-minded. You go at it with a sense of curiosity, accepting. You want to be solution-focused, an attempt to understand. Help me to understand why we're going to spend this money, why we want to make this change, and just really go into it and assume a positive intent. And she talked about how always start with the facts and keep the tone positive. And so I just thought it was, I think that's so important when we get to our meetings that we just always keep that positive attitude and really think about our questions, how we state them, how we're trying to get to the facts, and just a mutual aura of respect. It was excellent.
Of course.
You know, it's okay if you want to salute Colin even late in the meeting.
Oh, can I?
Yeah, that's a great
Then I
idea,
will.
Brian.
I want to salute Colin Jacobs for his
Julie,
presentation.
scroll back up there.
Julie's
like, furiously.
On character. Honestly, I knew that we taught these studies, but I learned so much from his presentation. How he talked about how we go to all these different stakeholders within the community, and we develop a list of core values we want our kids to know, and we teach it from 4K up to seniors. And just how it's been so impactful on our student body, and of course it goes along with our graduate profile. But I just think there was people from other districts that were listening to Colin and just like soaking this up and thinking to themselves, we got to do this in our district. So
You forgot to add that he was ditched by his partner on the presentation. He had to do it all by himself.
I didn't know he was, but
yeah,
he did
so,
excellent.
From River Falls, I think it was,
Oh,
and he got
okay.
caught by the snowstorm. So
Yeah.
he found out at about 9 o'clock at night that he was going to have to do the whole thing by himself.
Again,
sounds
he
like-
has about a 200-page book you can read. His whole doctoral dissertation was.
Sounds
on
like
this
he
book.
handled it beautifully,
Yeah.
so, good. I went to meaningful community engagement, and it was kind of skewed towards getting community engagement, say, for a referendum. But what I took away from it was things that we might be able to do with our strategy sessions. And it talked about being purposeful on who does the inviting, which I think we worked on last year, that all of us tried to personally invite people. It talked about some creative ideas. Some of them I wondered might make it more circus-like, but like having the pirate there as the mascot to take pictures with people if they wanted to do that, to offer childcare, and I think Danielle and I talked about that, like if that's an option, like to have the high school students get some volunteer hours and offer childcare, swag bags, give away, things. And then I really thought this was an awesome opener. They had the kindergartners march in caps and gowns with a sign that said, "We are the future, what do you wish for us?" Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah.
Like get everybody like engaged and like excited. So just an attention grabber to set the tone. And so I thought there were some really good things there. I went to the Title IX and transgender students. This one, I can't really give you, it's a lot. Like if you want the slides, I can give you the slides. But it was a good history, and it talked about the current legal status in our state and in our country. They define terms, they define the federal laws, the state laws, and then of course, what we're really governed by are the current court opinions that are out there. They discussed the WIAA and their policies, which seem to be holding up legally, so I thought that was interesting. Everything they said gave me a level of comfort of what we're doing here. I did not identify anything where I'm like, oh, that we could be in trouble here. I thought that everything that they talked about, we seem to be doing well. And then the last one was the bullying prevention toolkit. So the DPI is putting together a bullying prevention toolkit that should be coming out soon. I have no idea if that's something that we would be interested in looking at or implementing. But it seemed to be a good resource as far as having a reporting process and a procedure and protocol and suggestions for the bullying report that we would use and things like that. So it sounds like it could be a tool if we're interested in something like that, but it's just not out yet.
The other one you talked about before with Bob Butler, in typical fashion, he had 45 minutes and had 3 hours worth of slides. But a lot of it was, we don't know. So call them and talk it through if you have an issue. So that's basically what came out as a theme over and over again, I think.
Yes.
I went to the general session, so I bought the guy's book in terms of what's there, gave a copy to Mike in terms of what's out there. So I think that's another one of those, we've heard this guy speak before, but I think he had a very powerful message this time around in terms of the pillars of trust that are out there and things like the clarity and communication and all those things that we have to do to connections with our community in terms of what's there. So
And he had a lot of
he-
C's with those pillars that were very
yeah.
similar to a bridge.
Vaguely familiar.
We had a little discussion about that in our extra next session that we did. There was one, and as long as we're in the concept of recognizing the other sessions, so we had the ones that were listed. But Mike also participated in mending the community fabric, weaving diverse perspectives into an effective engagement. So he was part of a panel that was run by Melissa Matarazzo with a couple of other superintendents. And as usual, Mike did a great job in helping to define and create some answers to questions that Melissa had prepared. And we believe, I think that she said that there's a WASB school news article that will be coming out and will hopefully feature Mike's responses and some of the categories that are there. So I thought that was really good. So there might be another candidate for a recognition for the superintendent in terms of participating in that. And I think, again, our session that we did in terms of the starting post-secondary, well-received, lots of questions, lots of people coming up after that, which is also, I think, one of those things where when we go out and present, I mean, a lot of times people come to a Pewaukee session because they know that they're gonna learn something different. And I think there was one or two of the people there basically said that. It's like, oh, Pewaukee's on the agenda, let's go listen to that particular session. The other one that I did attend, and it was, I don't know if anyone else was there, I don't remember, I was sitting kind of in the front, so there was Trish Kilpin, Kilpin. She is now with the Wisconsin Department of Justice, the Office of School Safety, and has been there for maybe about a year and a half or so, maybe longer than that. But she did not have a handout, and there's nothing that's out there on the WSB website. But she did speak a lot about the Speak Up, Speak Out, and the reporting tools that are out there for people to actually report. And then they have the follow-up mechanisms with that. So, I mean, they do get a fair number of calls coming into that, and then their goal is to follow up and work with school districts or police departments, whoever, in terms of responding to anything that would be a significant threat in terms of working with school districts on that. She also talked a lot about the National Association of School Psychologists and some of their guidance and materials. There's an actual annual report that was on their now website, and then also school threat assessment tools that they've created and used out there as well. So again, I know John and actually one of the other people that was there spoke highly of John Stangler and our district in terms of our image and reputation as it relates to school safety kinds of things that we do and have done here to support the student safety, campus safety, if you will, as well. So that was always nice to hear those kinds of things.
Larry, where was that presenter from?
The presenter was from the Wisconsin Department of Justice, the Office of School Safety, right? John?
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
There's not, I mean, she didn't have a handout, but I kind of looked up resources on the website. I also concur with Bren on the idea that Colin doing a presentation was great. And then I think John also did something as well. So another recognition for John as being another, somewhat like an invited speaker perhaps, since he was there. I mean,
Yeah, my co-presenter showed up this year, not like
Yes.
last year when I was bailed on the night before, so.
and it was, okay, the other thing is it's like basic financial oversight of the school district. Is that was the topic?
Top 10 controls. I want to second that because I attended. That room was packed. And John takes a subject matter that some people could fall asleep over, right? And he made it so
Danielle.
interesting. And people were asking so many questions. He actually had to cut off the questions because time was up. So I think that tells you the expert we have here that takes a subject matter, makes it easier to understand, and people were thoroughly engaged.
Yes, I agree with that. There was one session, now I didn't actually attend it per se, but I heard it in a different format. It was the one that was by Ann Chapman, and she now works for the WASBO group, which is John's kind of professional group that's out there. And she has a really, really good PowerPoint, has things in terms of the financial status of schools and school districts in the state of Wisconsin, lots of information about where we rank, how we rank in terms of our funding and support of schools, and then kind of has the budget process laid out in terms of the timeline. So as we think about what's coming up in terms of the next few months, as the state legislature works on putting together the state budget for the next biennium that's out there, right? That'll be interesting to see how much of the material that WSB, and a lot of that's also been embraced and I would say endorsed by the SWSA group as well, so it's out there with that, so. And then the only other one that was out there, and this I actually did share with Danielle as well, and Jeannie was with me. Okay, so not that I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey, but I mean, there is a lot of stuff that's out there. So there's a couple of books that these folks have read, and I think at one point in time we had something related to like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, the 7 Habits of Happy Kids, The Leader in Me. I know there's some of those books are used in some of the classes that we have on leadership here in the district. So when Jeannie and I were talking to this lady, we got a sample book, and I gave one to Danielle. But it's for the 4 disciplines of execution for educators. And then we found out that, we could potentially get into this because the Kern family, which is the company, or it's now Generac, but they were the founders of that company. They will provide like up to a $27,500 donation if we should decide to proceed with any content there. But that's Danielle's forte in terms of that. So and then I agree kind of with Brian about the construction. But I'm wondering if, because there was like a lot of construction referendums were also approved in addition to operating referendums. So yes, indeed, there's money out there to be spent on upgrading schools and building new schools and renovating schools. I think there was like one in La Crosse with like $90-something million.
93 was it? Yeah, something like that.
So anyway, but yeah, it was a fun time, and I think it was great to have most of us there participate in the conference. The Thursday afternoon session when a certain board member gets recognized for 20 years of service was kind of like the highlight of the conference.
It sure
for me.
was.
Well, let's give it to him.
Hey, Larry.
It wasn't a session that I went to, but when I wandered around the exhibit hall, there was a group of students there, and I honestly forgot what school they were from, but they were showing their robots off.
Oh, yeah.
And when I told them I was from Pewaukee and ours was Paradigm Shift, they went, "Oh, they're really good. We've worked with them before. We like being their partners." So we have a reputation out there with our robots too, apparently.
Yeah. It was a very strong robotics team.
Bren, you gonna offer another?
Oh, I want to salute John for
There you
his
go.
presentation.
Let me just throw that in there for you.
Thank you.
John and Mike and Colin all get the salutes coming out of this.
So Julie, you can just kind of walk through the office and fist bump.
Yeah.
Save yourself the time.
So are you gonna be a published author? Like, are we gonna have to
Well,
give you?
he's not writing it. He
accolades?
was just interviewed for it.
I'm just in it. It's going to be like literally an article. At this point.
All right.
That
And your
six-
picture
that
on the
6
other
people
side.
will read it.
Well, there's 7 of us.
Well, there you go. So
And you'll put one on my desk.
there you go. Maybe 20.
All right. Are we all done? Everything good? Legislative advocacy update.
Yeah, it's, right now everything's about the biennium budget process. The governor's gonna give his, proposed budget. You've probably heard a lot about it already, and some of his priorities on Wednesday. There'll be, I'm sure, not within the month following, you'll have the legislature, kind of put their plan out there. So that's really what, this is about. We've already had a meeting with Representative Nayland, I saw him at our basketball game on recently. I forget which one of the
The
basketball games.
sellout one?
I think yeah. Well, I wasn't at that one, so
Oh, no.
it must have been the Waukesha South game. Anyway, so we've met with him. We've had some communication with Senator Kapenga. Kind of reach back out once we know what the governor's priorities are, just to kind of try to keep the communication lines open. The biggest challenge, I think, there, and John's done an amazing job kind of modeling and projecting things, but you're just working with unknowns. And the more insight we can get into what we can actually expect, is the sooner we can get some clear direction, the better. But the reality is it could take a while. So, but that's really where we're at with. That's what everybody's focused on right now.
All right, anything else? Legislative? Okay, community engagement. We have the opportunity to discuss a town hall meeting or other community engagement opportunities.
Yeah, and one thing I'd say is we're still not quite there on that parent survey. I think we'll be there probably maybe end of this week. I
Okay.
can start getting themes out to you. I know, Candace is just, she's working through uncoding comments and that kind of stuff, so I know, my suggestion, is that, you know, we revisit this in the last meeting in February, to talk about that, because at that, between now and then, I should be able to get you themes, because where we left it last is in terms of the board considering what the topics might be, that maybe we can really pull some from that parent, engagement survey.
I agree.
Just one thought on that, and I know that we do it with staff surveys. When you meet with them, you kind of have that format in terms of top things, bottom things, whatever it is. I mean, depending upon what comes out of that survey, could you use that same kind of a format for the discussion
Yeah.
around those things and just use it as an open town hall of, here's things that are there, and then these opportunities for improvement to kind of expand upon those things that we would get from people participating and talking in person about those things, but that's just a thought.
Yeah, that is how we do it with staff, as we pick those top themes and then
In
those
the-
areas for improvement.
Yeah, consistency kind of thing from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea.
Everybody good with that? We'll
Oh, yeah.
table it till next meeting?
Yep.
Okay. Comments from citizens? We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for coming.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?